Hello, writers. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be revising for two things. We're going to be revising for thoughts and for emotions. So let's focus on thoughts first. So as writers, we want to include what we call thought shots, which are pictures of the thoughts that are going on in our minds. So when you take a look at your paper, what you want to do is ask yourself, okay, where is a place that I can bring in my thoughts? What was I thinking? This gives your reader a way of seeing into your mind, and it's a part of that first person point of view that you're writing in is showing your thinking. So let's take a look at my paper here. I'm looking at the story of seeing my sister run out of the car and pet the mules at Custer State Park. Now, when I look at this story, I want to ask myself, where is a good spot for me to include what I'm thinking? Okay. Now, I can include multiple different spots in my paper of where I'm thinking. For the purpose of this example, I'm just going to focus in on one. As I go and look through my paper, I start to notice that towards the bottom here, there's a spot where I talk about how it's right here. I'll go and highlight it. It says, I laughed to myself at the sight of seeing my 23-year-old sister petting a mule. Because it was pretty funny considering that this story just happened last year. My sister ran out of the car and was like dying to pet a mule, which I thought was pretty funny. So what I want to do is add in my thoughts here. So I have to ask myself, okay, well, what was I thinking? Now, I might not remember the exact thing that I was thinking in my mind, but as memoirists, that's what we do. We fill in the blanks. So I remember thinking to myself that she looked kind of crazy, that I couldn't believe she was 23 years old running after the mule. I mean, there were all these kids looking at the mules, but she was clearly the oldest one going after the mule. So what I want to do is communicate that then in this sentence. So where it says, I laughed to myself at the sight of seeing my 23-year-old sister petting a mule, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to add in my thoughts. So I've noticed that I've started a lot of my sentences with I, so I'm going to try to change that. So I'm going to say laughing to myself, comma, I thought. Now, when I do thoughts, I'm going to format them the same as I would speaking dialogue. So what's going to happen is I'm going to do a comma first and then a quotation mark, and that's showing what I'm saying in my head. So, well, what did I think to myself? I thought, I can't believe my 23-year-old sister is running after a mule like a little kid. Okay? My quote has ended, so what I'm going to do is this is the end of my sentence. I'm going to put a period and then my quotation mark. Okay? Now, I've got some of this here, so I need to delete this because it doesn't make sense to repeat it again. So now I've put my thought in. Laughing to myself, I thought, I can't believe my 23-year-old sister is running after a mule like a little kid. You want to think about lots of places where you can put in thoughts, and this is just one example. So that's the first thing that we're revising for, is adding in thoughts. The second thing that we want to revise for is we're going to revise for emotions. And so we as writers want to bring in our emotions. We want to create a mood for our readers, and we want our readers to feel certain emotions. And so we as writers need to bring our emotions. And so I want you to ask yourself, what emotions were you feeling during this moment? Okay? For me, this is a very happy moment. It's a funny moment, and so I want to show that I was happy, that I was laughing, it was funny. And as I look through, I've got this part here where it says, suddenly I noticed something at the window. It was a mule sticking its head in. I couldn't believe it. And so my mood there was I was really surprised. I was so focused on my sister that all of a sudden I didn't realize that there was this mule sticking its head through the window. And so when I look at my word choice here, I really want to make sure that I have words that show kind of my surprise and excitement. So notice what I have here. I have this word suddenly. That shows that something's kind of happening out of the blue. And so what I want to do is I want to look through this moment and ask myself, okay, how can I add in words that show that I was surprised? Or could I add in some thoughts or different things like that? So let's take a look at this. Suddenly, I noticed something at the window. It was a mule sticking its head in. I couldn't believe it. So let's add in some more surprise. So I like that I say suddenly, I noticed something at the window. It was a mule sticking its head in. And so I'm going to say, I was completely surprised that I hadn't seen the mule before. It must have snuck up on me while I was watching Katie. Now, taking a look at this, let's look at some words that I used here. I have suddenly, completely surprised. It must have snuck up on me. I couldn't believe it. So I've got some words that really show that I was surprised, and it brings in a little bit more description of what was happening too. So let's read through this one more time and make sure that it makes sense. Suddenly I noticed something at the window. It was a mule sticking its head in. I was completely surprised that I hadn't seen the mule before. I must have snuck up on me while I was watching Katie. Gotta change that to it. That's why we read things out loud. It must have snuck up on me while I was watching Katie. I couldn't believe it. So I've added in some emotions now, and I've added some more words that show how I was feeling. So today, writers, what you're going to do is you're going to revise for two different things. The first thing you're going to revise for is thoughts. So you're going to look for one spot at least, if not more, that you can go in and add what you were thinking. And we make sure that we format that like dialogue. The next thing that you're going to do is ask yourself, how do I bring in emotions? What emotions was I feeling, and does my word choice match those emotions? So think about your emotions through the story and look to see, does your word choice match? You're going to be revising for those two things. You're going to have today and tomorrow to revise. So if you need to wrap up any revisions from the previous days, make sure you do so. If you have any questions, you can talk to Mrs. Nisnik, or you can send me an email and I will answer your questions tomorrow. Have a great day.